is truly an honor to be here in your united celebration and worship God. It's truly an honor. I'm actually very humbled to have the chance to be the person who delivers a message about thoughts and prayers in our day and age. I admit it's probably a little uncommon to see a Muslim standing inside of your church delivering the message, but it's not. See, I've just learned something just in one single minute circumstance. But when we talk and we think about the current events, as Chris alluded to, this saying, our thoughts and prayers are with those affected, with those victims, with those so devastated, gets tossed around like a football. And we started to think about, what does that mean? What does that mean to those who say it? And how does it impact and affect those who are the targets of our thoughts and prayers? And I understand that this may have a pejorative view within widespread society, but I came here to share with you how it affects Muslims and how the Muslims, both in the United States and around the world, interact with the concept of thoughts and prayer. So when you think about a Muslim perspective, when you think about it from my perspective, the definition of a Muslim is one who submits to the will of God. That's the first and foremost definition of the Arabic, which is the term Muslim. And so when we say thoughts and prayers, is there any more formalized definition of submission to God than thinking of those people who are suffering and praying to ameliorate that suffering? But when you think of it and you don't follow through on it, where does that leave you when you're standing with God? I know that in the Bible there's a saying, faith without works is dead. So if you don't manifest and don't embody that faith, where does that leave those thoughts and prayers? Where does that leave the victims? Where does that leave those people who are hurt, who are languishing? And so we have this dual concept within Islam where actions are judged and accountable by both their intention and by the actions. So when we mention a concept like faith without works is dead, that is a huge part of each action that occurs from the perception of a Muslim. But if the intentions were not there, first and foremost to please God, what was the action about? Was it to look good in front of an audience? Was it to make someone feel happy and welcome? Or was it to do those in the course of pleasing God, the Creator, the one that brought all the prophets and messengers, starting with Adam all the way through Jesus, peace be upon him, and for us, the seal of the prophets, Muhammad, peace be upon him. So we start out from the lexicon of looking and seeing, is my heart in the right place? Does this take into account how you feel when I'm saying my heart goes out to what suffering you might have? And I'm not doing it in a room full of people, rather I connect with you personally. How are you doing? You doing all right? You doing okay this Sunday morning? I don't do that just for the looks. I do it to please God first and foremost. As a way to reduce the self out of the equation and to think about the widespread context of how you and I relate to each other as a community. when we think about our actions and the results of those, oftentimes those thoughts and prayerful wishes are done with the best of intentions. However, as we have seen in many recent moments in unfortunate history, they have become politicized, unfortunately, where your local politicians, people who are trying to do things in society, captivate that moment and rush to utilize it for personal gain. Thoughts and prayers, where are those intentions? Where do they lie? And it's unfortunate that many marginalized communities get disproportionately affected by this, by being used as pawns in an unfortunate game of inauthenticity. When we are people who believe in a higher power, we know that that higher power knows what's in our hearts, what's in our minds, what drives us to be who we are. That can't be hidden from the Creator Almighty. So if this is where you're coming from, how thoughtful or prayerful can those sentences that get uttered be? And so as a community, we are oftentimes both maligned as perhaps the perpetrators of an event that makes people issue thoughts and prayers, and then unfortunately we may become the recipients of thoughts and prayers. So one of the incidents was when we were in Toronto, there was an unfortunate synagogue shooting that happened in Pittsburgh. As a community and as a Muslim, unfortunately, one of the first thoughts when this happens is, God, please don't let it be a person who's Muslim who have done this. This is a moment where, admittedly, we may become weak in terms of faith because we're so concerned that society will point to us and say, here you guys go again. Why can't you get yourselves under control? And yes, of course, there are a few bad apples out there, but in the nearly 2 billion Muslims on the planet, we can't all fit into that category. We're issuing thoughts and prayers just like everyone else is. We're hoping that victims are okay and that suffering is minimized. We're rushing into whatever catastrophe may happen to see how we may be able to help. And in the midst of those thoughts and prayers that follow that synagogue shooting, we happen to find a synagogue and form a prayer circle around it, as a show of support and solidarity that those people praying and observing Shabbat inside would be safe, that we stood with them in that moment of vulnerability and weakness, and we felt the hurt just as they had felt. We wanted to embody those thoughts in prayer as a show, arm in arm, Abrahamic traditions together, good people united in faith and goodwill. And unfortunately, fast forward a few months, and then the mosque shooting in New Zealand happens. And I was overwhelmed by the thoughts and prayer from the many faith leaders that had come on the same trip to the Parliament of World Religions, the rabbis, the pastors, the preachers, contacted me as soon as it happened, even before some Muslims had even known that it even happened, saying, my thoughts and prayers are with you and your community. What can we do? How can we help? And before you knew it, the mosque was filled with individuals from as many different faiths as you can imagine, demonstrating those thoughts and prayer. But there was another part to the story that Chris didn't mention that I'll kind of elaborate on, is when we hear thoughts and prayers, where are those when good times. Don't wish me thoughts and prayers only when I'm suffering. Wish me thoughts and prayers when times are good.
Yes. Yes.
When we are experiencing jubilation like your celebration of God today. These are things that we need to be in the practice of, coming towards each other in the times of your celebrations and jubilation, saying, my thoughts and prayers are with you in your greatest times. Because it's not only in tragedies that we get to know each other. It's the times that are celebratory. The times when you're happy and laughing and smiling with your kids, looking at a picture that they can't possibly think has so many different images in it. Those are the times where all of us should be coming together, joining in prayer, extolling the highest virtues of the Creator, and looking at what is good and brings us together, not what separates us. And so in those times where it was difficult, Chris and other colleagues were issuing us thoughts and prayer, many asked, is there something special that Muslims do? Is there something different? Because, you guys pray a little different, read a different language, you have a different book. What does that look like? Have you guys ever heard or asked or had the opportunity to see how Muslims deal with some of those difficult times? Show of hands. Awesome. So in those nearly 2 billion Muslims on the planet, there will probably be 2 billion different ways in which those are dealt with. And to personalize it, I'll give you how I adjust to situations in which thoughts and prayer are often either given or in times in which I am giving them to colleagues and people that may be going through difficult situations. So Muslims have 5 obligatory prayers that they pray every day. And these are physical prayer. They happen at fixed times throughout the day, depending on the movements of light and the sun. But you find yourself in most communities in times of difficulty and joy more prayerful, correct? You pray a little bit more, right? You read a little bit more scripture, you spend a little bit more time in communion and having your connection with the Creator. And we do that as well. I myself practice many different spiritual techniques with families that I know, and also in my own solitude, where the remembrance of the Creator is one of the most powerful additions to those prayers that are offered. So these are extolling the virtues of the Creator, the 99 names in Arabic. These can be recited to oneself while you're driving, or in small groups or even groups of this size. It's a very, very, very powerful experience, as when you guys shared your hymn and your prayer songs. It's very powerful. I'm sure you could feel it as everybody was reciting along. I was moved personally, and I'm going to take a little bit of this home to bring in my own tradition. That powerful connection. It's as if you're picking up the phone and dialing God. And you're doing this multiple times without any connection. I have the direct line. And I'm accessing the direct line. I'm not going to the secretary. Not the voicemail, not text message, direct. Old-fashioned communication from mouth to ear. It's powerful. Don't you feel empowered when you feel as though you are heard? You feel as though you are in the presence of God. You feel that God, in Islam and in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I am with you. I am as my worshiper knows me. I am nearer to them than their jugular vein. So if I cry out to my Lord, oh God, help me, I know he's hearing me. You guys, we all have that saying, he may not come, but he may not come in the call, but he's always on time, right? Mm-hmm. Right? And so sometimes you may ask for something in those thoughts and prayers, and it may not come exactly when you want it, but it will come, and it will come on time. The fruits of those thoughts and prayers are in part what brings me here today. I had no idea that any of my activities would ever lead me to connect with this congregation in another form than the Progressive Congregations Network. I love the space. I love this community. I love what you stand for. And it is a part of something that I hope to take back to my own. The words that you embody in the beginning introduction that we experienced today were extremely powerful. And accepting people as they are and embracing them as they were created by their Creator. That has to be in the spirit of thoughts and prayers, right? How can I pray for someone if I don't accept them? How can I have thoughts of goodwill if I don't love you? As a human being, as a child of God, that message of love and acceptance is fundamental to authenticity in thoughts and prayers, are they not?
Yes.
It's amazing. So when we go through trials and tribulations, particularly of the magnitude that I have mentioned earlier, massive random acts of violence, prayer is at the center point of the Muslim activity, personally as well as the pejorative widespread group. You will see the mosques filled, and there be no room for individuals to pray. And it's a physical prayer, so I might be a little like this and uncomfortable, but I'm happy that there's so many people who have taken the time out of their day to remember God in congregation, no less. So it's always amazing the capacity of human beings in those most raw, vulnerable moments of tragedy and triumph. I have to believe that with the way things are going right now, we are at a turning point. We are at a precipice. We have infinite capacity to do good, and I think you guys here know that. You guys here have been a part of tremendous good in the Denver metropolitan area, and you're not alone. We have struggled. We have worked hard and endured to feed the homeless. We have worked to ameliorate those who are suffering from every corner of the earth and to make their transition into life in the United States as comfortable as it may be. We have fought against violence and oppression. At the center of that must be thought and prayer. Without the thought of a better day or prayer for a hopeful, better tomorrow, how can we ever engage in those activities? There is an unbridled optimism that people of faith have and possess. And that is at the crux of thoughts and prayer. We're hopefully optimistic that God Almighty will ameliorate that suffering, will uplift those who have fallen, and elevate them to a higher position. And that is hope. Something in the Matrix they said is quintessentially human and silly, but it's an asset. If we have no hope, where will we be? We're all hopeful for salvation. We're all hopeful that we will be granted paradise in the next life. Raw, definitive optimism. I have to know and hope that tomorrow my neighbor will do better than they did today, and myself, first and foremost. And I hope that through all of our interactions, at the end of the day, we're striving towards that time in which we return towards our Creator. Because ultimately, that's the most powerful thing. That's the most powerful point of life, and that suffering, the hardships of this physical life are alleviated, and we are in our best and most perfect selves in the life to come. And so the spiritual aspects of thoughts and prayer are not just physical. They're as much mental as anything. Putting ourselves in a state where we are receptive to what good God brings us is half the battle. If we can open ourselves, they call it, the power of actualization. If we can think it, we can see it, we can achieve it, correct? So if you can envision yourself in a prayerful space, where we're considerate of those around us, who don't look like us, who don't pray like us, who don't eat like us. Everyone is vegan in the house. My thoughts and prayers with you. I know it's a struggle. I've tried it a little bit and I failed miserably. But if we can see it, we can achieve it. And being here in this space today, I've seen an incredible expression of joint celebration of prayer and faith in God, and an openness and a receptiveness to hear how someone who may believe in some fundamentally different things does believe in thought and prayer, and how may I take something perhaps from my own practice, my own thoughts, my own success, or just to learn. And it's that spirit of willingness to go and adventure into the other that Chris and I both connected on many months ago, and that I continue to plunge into in learning how I might better have thoughts and prayers. How can I better deal with tragedy? Because I'll give you a personal anecdote. When I first moved to Denver in 2012, I didn't know anyone here. I came here because I had a nice postdoc in National Jewish Health. Soon thereafter, my grandmother passes away. And I had the chance to go and visit my grandmother before she passed. And I didn't do it because I went to go and see my then fiance's family in Europe. And that hit me so hard, devastated me, because my grandmother, the mother of my mother, I had not forsaken, but I had taken for granted to see a family that I might gain one day. And when that news came, I fell to the floor and I wept like a baby. And it was only through the remembrance of God that got me through that moment. I felt bad for my neighbor who's actually here. Coincidentally, I had no idea this was her church, but neighbor for many years was here, and I feel so bad for her. My thoughts and prayers went out to you if you heard me those nights, crying so profusely. And it wasn't any well wishes, none of that mattered. It was only knowing with the hope in full affirmation of my belief that my grandmother was in a better place than she was here. And that God heard my prayers for her. She was a Southern Baptist, hardshell. She's like hardshell Southern Baptist, so don't talk to me about Islam. Don't talk to me about that. But she, in her last days, she had a Quran that was like a study Bible. She had been making notes and marking, and she had her Bible, and all of these things, these possessions were closer to her than the phone, closer to her than anything else. And those were amongst her most prized possessions when she passed this earth. Seeing this, packing these belongings up of a dearly departed maternal saint, even though my grandmother really wasn't saintly. She was tough, but seeing that these were her most prized possessions really affirmed all those thoughts and prayers, because I knew the difficulty of her circumstances when she passed, that she was still holding so closely to the rope of God, and that she wrote prayers for herself, her family, and President Obama. She wrote prayers every day for these three things. And I said, there must be a power of prayer in God for someone that she had, kidney disease, was going through dialysis, and even amongst the difficulties of this, she powered through. So I raised my hands and I said very particular, very special, very personalized prayer for her safety, for her ease in transition, for her position in the life to come, and for God to have overlooked or covered any of her faults and errors of this life. And that is how a lot of us typically deal with trials and tribulations and thoughts and prayers from a canonical position. But on a personal level, Colorado is a different place, guys. You will see Muslims doing every kind of activity that you can possibly imagine and bringing spirituality into that. So how many people here do 14ers? Okay. This is interesting for Colorado. Normally, everybody's hands up. I've attempted several. I've completed 2. And these are spiritual experiences. I kid you not. When you summit over 14,000 feet elevation, you break the tree line. It is a spiritual experience to be humbled, in my case, to my knees, crawling to summit. True story. We have several communities that imbibe that into their practice, connecting and communing with the wilderness, with the creation. That is one element of their adherence in dealing with spiritual practice in times of difficulty, retreating to the proverbial cave, going back to what God created, no adulteration, and understanding one message: God created all of this. God created you as you are, and me as I am. As we say in the Quran, created as many tribes and nations so that you may know one another. And at the end of the day, those thoughts and prayers should be getting us to know one another, correct? Getting us to think about one another, correct? So I ask you to say a prayer for me, that if anything I said may have been an error, may God forgive me for that, and anything that I may have said today that is good has come from the Lord, the Creator, simply a vessel of that good. I thank you very much for my chance to share with you my tradition and how I may deal with thoughts and prayers and the roots of those situations in which thoughts and prayers are both requested and given. Thank you so much, and God bless you all.